Welcome back, people. It's been a hot minute. Before we dive into the poker though, I want to talk about a few things. If you just want to skip ahead to the poker, timestamp will be right there. But as you know, I've taken a hiatus for a few months. Why, you ask? Well, I needed time off to travel for my main job, but also focus on poker study. You see, balancing content with poker study off the tables, I felt as though I was just churning out content towards the end without actually evolving my poker skills, at least at the rate that I wanted. As you can see, the most recent sessions before the break are there, not the best. Sure, you could chalk it up to a downswing, but deep down I felt I needed a break and to just level up my poker, recalibrate and learn your strategy. This season, we will still be playing out of London Aspers Casino for the most part, as it is one of the only casinos that we know that lets us record, and it's just a nice casino as well. I've gotten to know the people, it's spacious, it's got good air conditioning, yada yada. Secondly, this season I'm going to be more selective about the sessions I create vlogs for. So it might mean for those sessions I don't make a vlog for, I'll just mention the session result in the sessions I do make a vlog for. So lastly guys, most exciting feature for the new season is we are going to be setting a bankroll challenge. I don't know if we're ready for it, but we're going to apply the pressure, put our back against the wall, bet on ourselves. What's the worst that can happen? We're learning a new topic every week. We've been playing poker for 1 year now. This is our second year. I think we can do it in our second year. And the bankroll challenge is to get to £5,000. We don't even have enough proof that we are a winning player yet. But hopefully, when we do get there, we're going to Vegas. So this season it's the road to Vegas. For our first session, we're playing in London Aspers Casino on a wonderful Friday evening, buy-in for £265 and have only 3.5 hours to play some live cash. So for this one, I'm just going to run you through every single hand played, bar a few that I accidentally missed. Next hand is an absolute beauty, Pocket Rockets. I raised to 6 out of the low jack and only the big blind makes the call. Flop is definitely not our favourite now. It gives him the nut advantage with 7-6. Despite that though, I go against GTO by disregarding 7-6 combos and still c-bet on the larger side with a £10 bet, as flop will connect with his range and he does just make the call. 3 of clubs on the turn and it gives us a gut shot, but should not change much other than that. He checks to me again, and now I decide to slow down for some reason and check, which makes absolutely 0 sense. I think we gotta just charge his countless drawing combos here, but we are still learning. And now the river isn't what we want in the 7 of diamonds. He checks for a 3rd time though. So I target all of his 1-pair holdings after the questionable check on the turn especially. I bet 20 and he folds. Alright, now we pick up King 10 off in the low jack. I raise to 6. We get 2 callers and we hit top pair and it checks to me. I check on this very disconnected board. It checks all the way through. We hit another king. Checks to me again. I decide to bet 7 now to target any pairs. Unfortunately, both players fold. We move. Moving along to 10-9 off on the button. I raise to 6, I think, with sticky opponents on the blinds. I could have gone a bit larger here to try get them to fold near the bottom of my range, but only the big blind completes, and we don't really mind that flop. He checks to me, and I just bet small here to try keep him in the hand, as we do have the range advantage. He calls 4 quid. And the turn is a blank. Now he checks to me again and I have to go for it, targeting his value range with a pot bet, but he folds. We pick up King 9 suited next in the small blind, 3 limpers before us. I squeeze the £12, which is a bit small for these sticky players that will call any size in, and we do as a result go 4 ways, which wasn't the plan. Board comes ace high rainbow, checks to the button who fires 20, and we are now done with this hand. Now picking up 6-5 suited, it folds to me. I raise to 6 from middle position and we go 4 ways with the sticky players in the blinds to a triple ace flop. Action checks to me with 1 player behind us
And to be honest, this play was purely based on my image at the table and the fact that we are probably behind everyone right now. So I bet here confident that unless anyone has the final ace in the deck or a pocket pair, we will have an extremely good chance of taking it down right here, right now, with a small bet. So I bet £5, and on this occasion, it gets the job done. We face 2 limps before peeling 8s in the hijack. I bump it up to £12 and only the early position limper calls, and we go 2 ways to 5, 6, 3, 2 tone. Now early position limper donk bets for £12. I consider raising for a second to get value from his draw plus pair type holdings, which I think people usually make this kind of play with, but instead I just elect to call to see a turn, which I think is the suboptimal play looking back. Anyway, the turn is the 7 of hearts, not what we wanted to see. It does make us open-ended though, but now any 4x combos in his limp call-in range pre-flop will have us beat. He now barrels for 20. Of course, I can't let go just yet, but not liking this spot now, and the river is the jack of clubs, which is pretty inconsequential. And after he triple barrels 35, we are done with this hand and I fold. Pick up a pretty one now in jack 10 of hearts. I raise to 7 out of the low jack. Player behind us calls, but Tommy in the cutoff 3 bets to 35 as he loves to do. Big blind cold calls and we call and go 3 ways to a favourable flop. It is jack high, big blind checks to me. I check to the pre-flop aggressor Tommy to see what he wants to do. He wants to check, and the 9 of clubs on the turn. We pick up a gut shot and retain our top pair. Big blind checks to us again. It is only a rainbow board. I could maybe opt to go for a check raise here, but I think I can't risk a free river 3 ways here. So I do just lead out for about 3rd pot, and that gets the job done. For this hand, the straddle is on. Button calls the straddle, and with king jack of clubs in the big blind, I'll raise it up to 25, and we do just go 2 ways with the button to a favourable king 5, 8, 2 hearts. I bet 20 quid and he folds. We are around the 3-hour mark. I'm planning to leave in the next 20 minutes or so. Up to now, it's been a pretty docile session. We haven't got into any big pots, and that's okay. That can easily happen in a 3-hour poker session. We've just been fluctuating above break even, but that's all about to change with this next hand. The new player at the table sitting under the gun straddles. We have the notorious Jiggities in early position, and I raise it up to 20. It's on the smaller size, I think. Anyhow, button calls and the straddler makes the call, and we go 3 ways to the flop, which comes 10, 10, 5 rainbow. Straddler checks to me, and my first thoughts is we have an overpair to the board, which is great. We block jack 10 and we can bet small here to get value from pocket pairs and perhaps some suited Broadway combos with some backdoors that we also need protection from. So I bet £15 and both players make the call. Hoping for low turn, it's the 8 of clubs, bringing in a backdoor flush draw, and overall, we don't mind it. Straddler checks again, and we still have an overpair here, and for similar reasons as to on the flop, I bet 35 for that combination of protection and value, and this time only the straddler makes the call. So heads up to the river, which is another 10. A fantastic card. Our opponent should never have a better full house than us here, so we literally only lose to quads. It's a great card. So when he checks to me for a 3rd time, the only question is how much to bet, and I bet £100, targeting his lower pocket pairs, and he tanks for at least 2 minutes before arriving at his decision, which is to flick it in. Let's go. Of course, we are good. He later tells me he had pocket nines. I play a couple more orbits after this hand before racking up my chips and going to the cash desk, stoked with the contribution that last hand will have on the bankroll challenge.
Yes.
For session 2, we once again have 3 hours to play some live cash, so I'm going to go through every hand, big or small, and we buy in for £260, take our seat, and right off the bat we get dealt ace queen off in the small blind. We face a low jack raise to £7 and then a button call, and I think it's right to squeeze here almost 100% of the time, so I do to £36, which gets the job done pre-flop.
41.
In the next hand, we pick up the cherries in the cutoff. Facing one limp to my right, I raise to £10. The button makes the call and the limper makes the call. So we go 3 ways to a flop, which comes ace, king, 8, rainbow, which is great for our range. And when it checks to me, I decide to range bet half pot here, just trying to end it here. And thankfully we did. We now face an open from under the gun with a raise to 6, 7-handed. I make the call out of the hijack and we go 2 ways to the flop, which comes queen 10, 6, rainbow. He checks, I check back. The 8 on the turn completes the full rainbow. He checks again and now I think I'm ahead, but with 7s we have showdown value, so I decide to check back again, and now not the best card, it's the jack on the river. He checks for a 3rd time though, and now I, for some reason, try to go for some ultra thin value here, perhaps targeting his ace X combos that whiffed. So I do bet £11 and he snap calls. He shows king jack off, and that was the first big mistake of the session. Jack hits his range all too well, not to mention ace king gets there. Just got to check this one back regardless of the result, I think. Moving along to the next hand, +1 limps, I decide to raise up to 8 next to act, and we end up going 4 ways to 6, 4, 6. We completely whiff, and action checks to me. I'm just going to check here, ready to give up, but it ends up checking through, so we get to see a free river, which ends up being the ace of diamonds. And now it checks to me again, and I can't help myself but use my image and perceived range here to punt £10 and try to take it down, and ends up working somehow, so we'll take it. We now pick up king queen out of the hijack I raise, and we go heads up with the small blind to 10 king 8 to hearts, and he checks, I bet 5 and he calls. The turn is a board pair in 8, he checks again, and now I decide to check and get tricky to try to get worse hands to call on the river, which is another 8. So when he checks to me, I get excited with my boat and decide to overbet £40, and he snap folds. I think I definitely got too greedy with that one. King 8 of clubs on the button now. I join in on the limb train and we go 5 ways to see a flop, which is not too bad. Action ends up checking all the way to us and I raise really small to £3, which in hindsight I think should be larger here, but at the same time we are multi-way, I suppose. We do end up getting 2 callers and the turn improves our equity a tad. It checks to us again, and now I use a proper sizing of £25, and here we get 1 cooler, and the river is a wonderful 3 of clubs, so we no longer need to consider bluffing. When it checks to me again, I bet £50, targeting his sets, 2 pairs or even straights, but unfortunately he lets it go. Alright, nothing really happening this session. We play a few more hands, namely ace 10 off. I 3-bet the button open to 27 in the small blind. We go heads up to a 10 high, favourable flop. I bet and he folds. Lastly, guys, we finish things off with the infamous ace king. Action folds to us in the small blind, and I of course raise to 17, and the big blind and straddler both make the call, so we go 3 ways to flop, top pair, top kicker, and we end up taking it down with a £10 c-bet, which wraps up this very tame session where I actually cash out for a £17 loss. And I realized I didn't include some of the whiffed hands on the flop contributing to this small loss, which next time is something I will work on for this type of format where I show every hand, big or small. But moving forward, as stated in the intro, I will try to focus more on creating vlogs for just a more exciting and interesting sessions this season, and rather just give you the session result on the more tame ones. But importantly, this does still show the reality of poker sometimes, which is something I do value to share. But anyway, people, we move.
So basically broke even in that session, and that pretty much sums it up. Grind continues into next week. Thanks for watching.